title of my message today is Tell Me More. Tell me more. Tell me more. Maybe you're thinking that about this sermon. I'm intrigued. Tell me more. Tell me more. I have a family. I don't know why I said that like it was a confession, you know what I mean? Or like it was going to be a surprise. You're like, oh, wow, I wasn't thinking that for you. Good job. But I do. I've been married to my wife, Gretchen, now for 17 years, and we have 3 kids together. It's crazy, like, to think about. We're getting to that place where we've been together like almost more of our lives than we've been apart, and that is like a wild thing to think about. And this is one of our family pictures. Every year, my wife makes sure that we get family pictures so she can document my weight gain and weight loss just over the many years of time. Anybody else, you feel like that's what it is? It's just a document of like, oh man, I was really stressed that year. Woo! Gained a few 100 pounds, whatever it was. It's hard to remember. But every year we take pictures, usually in November, and then we have them for kind of the holiday season. And so this is a picture of my family. This is me. That's why it looks a lot like me right here on the end. I think I'm literally wearing the same outfit, which is weird. I only have like one set of clothes. And then this is my wife on the other side here, Gretchen, which makes she's the other adult. So hopefully you're putting the pieces together. And we met in college, and we've been together a super long time. And when my grandma saw this picture, she Facebooked me right away and was like, "Sweetie, you need to give your wife some money for shopping. There's holes in the knees of her pants." I was like, "Grandma, she paid extra for that. These are new pants. Never mind." These are our 3 kids. This is Tegan right here on the left in like the cactus shirt. And you're like, wow, is that just like a super big fake smile? No, that's the normal everyday Tegan smile. Like some of you thought she ran the church when you got here for the first time. And she like gave you a tour, introduced you, took your tithes. You were like, whoa, what's going on? We never saw that money, by the way, just to let you know. Put it in the buckets. This is probably how she got that cactus shirt. Then next to her is Zeke or Ezekiel or the Zekel bear. He looks like Dennis the Menace, acts like Dennis the Menace. Crazy kind of kid. And then this is Cohen, and he's on the very right-hand side. And he actually, on Friday night, this is his first real year like playing soccer, and his team won the championship, first place in the Corona Norco Soccer Championship. And that was the same look he had on his face when that happened. We're like, he's so calm and cool out there. Like, and he was just kind of chill the whole time, even as he's scoring and doing all that stuff. And then he won, and he was just like, huh. I was like, you are a classic dude. We're going to have to explain this to your wife later in life. No, he really is excited about the birth of your first child. That's his look. That's it. That's what you're going to get, okay? And we had this taken. We're about to do pictures again this year, but we had this taken. We had it taken for a very specific purpose because we wanted to be able to have like kind of this document, right? This proof of representation of what our lives, what our family looked like at that point in history. Like this is what we looked like. This is what how our family functioned. This is us, right? This is who we are, right? And this is a picture of what we were like then. We were smiley and snuggly and good looking and no stains on our clothes and unified and a little more pasty than we would prefer. You know what I mean? Like this is us, right? And this picture is true. It's just not the whole truth, right? There's not enough untruth about it to say that this photo is a lie or a misrepresentation. It's just there's a lot that this photo leaves out, right? And if you were to show me pictures of your family, there would probably be a lot of things that were left out of it too, right? Because we don't want to take pictures of all of the moments, just the ones where we're like, that one is good enough to send to friends and family. That one is good enough to put on Facebook, Instagram, after you doctor it, a little Valencia filter, okay? Like that one is going to be good enough that one, we'll frame it, put it above the fireplace. That one is the one that's going to be in the picture that's behind us when we're getting the next picture taken, right? Like that's how good that one is. We don't take a picture of all the other moments. And the reality of it was, I'm telling you, I can't even remember. I don't know if it was a day after. It might have been even the same day. There was a scene. I was in my room. It was my day off, and I sleep in. The one day I'm not up before my whole family is my day off, and I sleep in, and they all get up. And it was a school day, and they all wake up, and I can hear them getting around, and they're being a little bit loud, and then there's like flat out just all that screaming, and it sounds like someone's being murdered. But you know when you're really tired, you're like, I'm sure they're not murdering someone. And if it is a murder, someone else will scream later, you know what I mean? Like, because you just want to sleep, right? And so I heard it, and then I hear it again, and then there's like, it sounded like there was a crash, like something broke, and then there's some more screaming, and then there's a cat screaming, and then there's a dog barking, and I'm like, we don't even have a dog. I'm like, what is happening in this room over there? And so I go out, and like I'm tired and I'm a little bit angry, but like even if I'm not angry, like I know that like if everyone's, because there's all this commotion, they don't even notice that I walk into the room and there's all this fighting and screaming and throwing stuff. There's food all over the room. The cats are running in circles. There's a dog outside that's barking at the cats inside. It sounds like the dog is inside. It's the world's loudest dog. And like the kids, like Tegan is dressed, but then she had a stain on her clothes and she's mad about that. There's juice on the counter. Like one of my sons doesn't have a shirt on. The other one is wearing nothing from the waist down, just bare down there. And both boys are fighting each other. And I gotta be honest, if I'm gonna have a full-on trying to kill someone fight, I'm gonna put some pants on first, right? Like I'm gonna be way easier to take down if just everything is open in this region. It's like there's one move, like, and it's over for you. This is not gonna work, right? And they're both brawling, and I look over at my wife, and she's like, has this look on her face where she's staring at the scene, but it's like she's staring past it to a Sandals Resort commercial that's playing in her mind. Like she's somewhere else. She's not in the thing. Literally, if I was just like, you should take a break, she'd be like, I'm out of here. She would have left right then. And I would have just been left with the kids. And so I'm trying to get everyone to stop, and I just like real loud, I'm like, hey! Just because like I know they'll stop and look at me, and then they stopped and looked, and then went right back to doing what they were doing. They're just like, Dad's awake, he can't do nothing, right? And they go back into the thing, and there's brawling, and it's insanity. And I try to go over, and I'm like trying to talk to my wife about like, what's going on? What kind of help do you need? Who can I tackle first? Like, what's going on? And like this whole thing is going on, and everyone, I'm like, what's happening, right? And so my wife's trying to tell me, and then somebody else overhears what she's telling me, and then they butt in, and then somebody else butts in, and then my one son brings my other son over in a headlock, and he's yelling, and the kid in the headlock, he's yelling his point of view, and they're all talking, and then they start hitting again, and then everyone starts fighting, and then my one son, my youngest son, without the pants on, gets up onto the coffee table, right, and goes, I just need to be heard! Like really loud. And then we all laugh because it's hilarious. And also, his hands lifted just high enough just to lift the shirt up to just give us more information than we needed. And we're all like, whoa! Just so much happening down there. And then everyone goes back to talking again. Like immediately they hear him make this declaration and we laugh, and then they go back to fighting again. And then I'm peeling everyone off. I'm like, you go to your room, you go to your room, you guys share a room, so you sit on put some pants on, then sit on the couch. I was like, you go to your room. She's like, but I'm your wife. I'm like, you need a timeout more than any of them, okay? I'm worried about you and your future, okay? And she goes, now I got to go to each room and like talk to each person and like calm everyone down and get it all back together. And like when I think back on this moment with my son and like his reaction, it's funny to me. It's funny because it's like a kid being a kid. But the reason why I bring it up is because I wonder like how many times have you felt that same overwhelming sense inside yourself? Like I just need to be heard. Like there's so much chaos, there's so many things happening, your schedule's tight, like you're overwhelmed with life, there's stress, there's things happening, there's like interactions with people or bosses or schoolmates or teachers that you haven't even gotten a chance to tell people about, and you have this desperate thing within you that's just like, I just need to be heard, and yet you're an adult, and so it's just like we're like, I don't know what I can or should do with this feeling, right? You're like, it feels like it would be wrong to take my pants off, get on the conference table, and say, I just need to be heard. And they'll be like, you can be heard at the Happy Hospital with the padded rooms. Please put some pants back on, right? Like, You're like, I don't know, how do I express this? And depending on your personality and your upbringing and your experiences, you may do a number of things. When you feel like you need to be heard, you may talk over people. You just make your voice louder, right, so that you can be heard over the other people. Maybe you steamroll conversations, always bringing it back to yourself. Maybe you ask other people the question that you want to answer, hoping that they hesitate long enough for you to be like, because what I think is, you ever had somebody do that to you before? They're like, so what are you hoping we do this weekend? You're like, well, I don't know, because like what I want to do is whatever. And you're like, okay, you didn't really care what I had to say, right? Or maybe you do that. Maybe you exercise that tool because you feel like you need to be heard. Maybe you just attempt to ignore that need. Maybe you try and set it aside or push it down. Maybe you distract yourself from your need to be heard and your feeling that you're not being heard with a to-do list, or maybe with food, or maybe with more food, or a little bit tastier food. I just like food. I'm just going to be real with you guys. Maybe for you it's alcohol. Maybe it's Netflix. Maybe for you that need to be heard makes you want to lash out at someone, or just, do something dangerous, or maybe just run away. Or maybe for you, your reaction is the favorite of most Americans. You take to Facebook for some good old-fashioned oversharing with strangers, right? You're just like, I need to be heard. This is going to happen, right? We don't even try and hide it anymore. We actually created a spot on the internet where the whole point is essentially just to put something up that says like, so this is pretty much what I want somebody to ask me about. Start the conversation, right? And we throw it out to the world hoping for some sort of interaction. And I think 9 times out of 10, regardless of whatever people post, what it is they're really saying is, I need to be heard. I need to be heard. But here's the problem in life and on Facebook. No one's listening. And you have that sense. And that's part of what makes that desperation even more desperate, even more deep, is that it feels like no one is paying attention. Like we're all just posting about what we feel and think and believe, and maybe even looking for someone else to like what they posted because it's exactly like just a different worded version of what we already think and believe. Or sometimes we just to like go and troll for like things we don't believe, not so that we can like try and understand what they believe or what they think or how they feel or what's going on in their life, but just so that we can let them know how stupid and idiotic they are for daring to have a different perspective than the one we showed up with. Like there's no one out there like showing up to a comment or an experience that someone is sharing that they don't agree with who's like, wow, that's an interesting idea, tell me more, right? I've never seen that on my wall from a troll ever, right? I've never thought about it from that angle before. That's really compelling stuff. Like, we've lived very different lives. We've had so many varying experiences. Like, I'm convinced I probably have a tremendous amount to learn from you. Like, I can't wait to expand my worldview by exploring and understanding and honestly considering your very unique perspective. Like, if somebody posted that, you'd be like, is this a joke? Steve, is that you? With a fake account, right? Like, we wouldn't even know what to do with that, and yet it's part of what we're craving. And why do we do that online? Because we do it in life. You ever thought to yourself, like, everyone would be so much better off if they would just listen to me and see things the way I see them, aka the right way, and do everything the way I know it should be done. It's so clear, it's obvious. I don't understand why people can't just get it, right? I wonder if, you have ever noticed that you are clearly the smartest person in your family, right? Has anyone else noticed that besides me? Like it's just, nobody else gets it. Now, here's what's crazy, and you're not going to believe this when I tell you. Everyone else in your family has had the same exact observation about themselves, that they are the smartest ones in the family, that they're the only one who really truly gets it. And I know that you hear that and you think like, yeah, that may be true, but the difference is I'm right and they're deluded, okay? That's where the discrepancy lies. And I get what you're saying because they're always trying to get me to listen to them, but that doesn't make sense because I'm not the one who needs to listen. They are. Like, I already see things the right way. I pretty much have all the information that I need to make a good decision. Like, I'm the one who gets it. Like, they ought to be listening to me. Like, I'm the one who needs to be heard. And this really brings us to the biggest core issue of why our relationships oftentimes disintegrate. Like, why things don't work, why there is so much conflict, like not only like around the world and online and in our party system, not just there, but like even in our own backyard, like even in our own bedroom, even inside of our own family. The issue is that we are all starving to be heard in a world that won't stop talking. We all want to be listened to, but no one wants to listen. And isn't this true of you? There's a word for what it is that we're after as people. Validation. And I know you're thinking like, that's great, but I can't validate them. They're wrong, okay? But validation is not the same thing as agreeing with someone. Validation is this. Validation is acknowledging and affirming what the world looks and feels like from another perspective. It's acknowledging and affirming what the world looks and feels like from another perspective. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about the way someone else sees the world that is not you. Because here is the truth that we often overlook. We think we see the world objectively, but we do not. You see the world through the prism of yourself. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. You are looking at life through the sum total of your experiences, of your personality, of your cultural upbringing, of your socioeconomic situation, of the theology that you've been handed, of the relationships that you have been privileged or cursed to find yourself in over the course of your life. And what it is you're most desperate for is for people to validate you. We think what we want is to be right, but what we really need is to be validated. The Hebrew word for awareness is the same word for intimacy. This is fascinating to me as I was like just researching this topic from a theological perspective. The fact that the Hebrews, who have far fewer words than we do in English, use the same word for awareness and intimacy, it insinuates that once I truly see and understand like where you're coming from, I become deeply connected to you. And once you begin to see and truly understand where I'm coming from, I feel a deep connection to you too. That's why we hear people say things like, oh man, I hated that guy so much. And then I started to get to know him, and then I was just like, wow, there was a lot I didn't understand. And I think it's not that we're completely unwilling to validate someone else. I think we are, as long as they validate us first, right? It's just like you got to do it in the right order, right? Me first, right? I'll listen to you after you listen to me, okay? I can't promise, but I may try and, understand your perspective as long as you agree that mine is unconditionally correct first. As long as we start there, then I'll listen to whatever you have to say, right? And it sounds funny, but it's like we think this way. But Christianity has a countercultural perspective on this, though you might not necessarily know this by watching how people who call themselves Christians conduct themselves on social media. But that's why it's important to bring this back up. The core of our faith really points to this passage that I'm going to bring to your attention. It's really the foundation of what it looks like to have whole and healthy and happy relationships, to really get at the kind of connectivity that we're all after. And it's in the book of James, chapter 1. It's James, who's the brother of Jesus, who is telling us relational tools that he has learned from observing his brother. Not just from watching his brother Jesus teach, but watching the way Jesus conducted his life. Because Jesus practiced what he preached. And so James is bringing to the attention of the very first church to people who want to be Christians, who want to be followers of the way of Jesus. And he's saying, like, if you want to follow Jesus and do what Jesus did, like if you want to truly be a Christian, this is what it looks like to be relationally healthy. But here's what I think you're going to find. Even if you're like, I don't know that I would call myself a Christian. I don't even know if I believe in God or the Bible. I think that what you're going to find here is true about humanity regardless. But listen to what it says. James chapter 1, verse 9. It says, understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. He says this, brothers and sisters, intentionally in a culture that favors men over women. He puts everybody on equal standard. And he says, hey, this is advice for everyone. He's trying to give a subtle lean that everyone is equal. I'm talking to all the people right here. This is not for someone else. This is for you and everyone, okay? Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Some of you are like, in other words, the opposite of everything we do in our entire culture, right? This is the opposite of all of our impulses in the way we conduct ourselves, especially in the Western world, modern internet age of the United States of America, right? Like, we are like, no. I am quick to speak my opinion, quick to get angry at anyone who doesn't automatically agree with me, and I listen almost never. That's how I do things. America. And then we're like, why am I so deeply unhappy? I wonder if those two things are connected, right? And James is saying your first priority, your starting point, the number one thing you should do if you want to have great relationships is this. Listen. Listen. And I know you want them to listen to you, but like again, if we're going to follow Jesus, Jesus is famous for having said, do for others what you want them to do for you. The truth of the matter is, the quicker you listen, the quicker you learn. And this is a big reason that Jesus is trying to give us this advice, is that he's trying to wake us up to the fact that there may be a couple things that we don't know or that we don't see. And that the quicker we listen, the quicker we might learn something that will help us be able to move forward in relationship with this person. That the quicker you listen, the quicker you learn. That in fact, we don't learn much by just restating what we already think. We learn by listening to what other people think and feel and how they see the world. And in fact, I would actually wager that like most of the moments in your life that you most regret are not moments where you're like, I was just too quick to listen. That was my problem, you know? It's probably moments where you're like, I kind of shot my mouth off real quick. Have you had those moments in life where like you got real emotional and something triggered you and pushed you over the edge and you're like, I've got some stuff to say on that. And you got all worked up and you just like blurted or texted or emailed, right, something out. And almost as soon as it went out, you were like, that was a mistake. That was not. Is there somehow a way to disable the internet? I don't know if is that possible? Can we make a call or something? I don't know how that works. Like that, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. And the worst part about it is there are certain things that we say or text or post or email that we cannot take back. We can apologize for. We can try and make things right. But like some of us, we still have statements or things that have been said to us or things that we have said that are still inflicting relationships today, even though it happened 25 years ago. Because we were too quick to speak, because we were too tuned into our anger, and we just couldn't take the time to slow down and listen. And I know you're thinking like, I don't understand why I need to go first, because it really doesn't make sense, because I'm older and I'm wiser. And, like I've been there before, and I know where this thing is going, this situation in their life, and I've read more books, and I've had more life experiences, and I've heard more sermons. And also, their frontal lobe isn't even fully formed yet, okay? They're not even going to really possess the kind of decision-making, like rational, long-term thinking until like 25, 26. I'm something around in there. And so it doesn't even make, and also, and I hate to say this, but it's true, I'm right. Good for you. Because here's the truth. you can write someone you love right out the door. And a lot of people do. Because the people in your life want to be understood, not lectured. I've talked to so many people, like up in my office, who are talking to me about their relationships splintering and falling apart, who are just like, I don't know what happened. I mean, it was like I was right, and I was just trying to tell her that I was right. And it was very clear, and I talked to people who always affirm my point of view, and they told me I was right. And so I gave her a book that she should read and a podcast she should listen to, and I gave her all the facts, and I angrily laid it out. I was trying to remain calm. I did yell a couple times, but it was more passionate, discussion is the way I like to choose to view it. And I put it, and I was correct, and I won. Okay? And I'm like, that's great. Where is she? And they're like, oh, she gone. Yeah, she is not around. And I've been crying myself to sleep a lot. And I'm like, wow, you said you won. It feels like a loss. It doesn't feel like maybe you won as hard as you think you did, right? It doesn't feel like maybe in the scope of the relationship. Like you won the argument, but you lost the connection. And isn't that what you really deeply want? And some of you wonder, why don't my kids want to hang out with me? Why don't my kids ever talk to me or tell me what's going on in their life? How come my kids don't want to hang out with me? Can't they see how successful and smart and wise I am? Let me tell you a secret. They don't care. They want the same thing you want. They want to be heard, seen, and understood. They need you to be quick to listen. But doing that requires something that doesn't really come naturally to us, particularly in the Western world. And it's this thing, and you may have never heard of it before. We don't do it good in our culture. It's called humility. Humility. I'm just give you a definition because I know that you're not familiar with this word, but humility is the assumption that there's something you don't know, see, or understand. Humility is the assumption that there's something you don't know, see, or understand. It's not saying that you don't know anything, that you don't see some things, and that you don't understand anything that's going on. It's just the assumption, the admission that, you know what, I bet about this situation, about this dynamic, about our interaction, about the greater thing that's happening, I bet there are some things that I don't know, see, or understand. Listen to what ancient wisdom writers said about this idea way before James, way before Jesus. Listen to what this proverb says. It's brilliantly recorded in a book that was creatively titled Proverbs. And it's full of Proverbs. This is what it says. It says, fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. And I know this is for everyone except for you, because you're like, yeah, but I'm not a fool. I actually am right. Therefore, I don't need to listen to others. Said every fool who ever existed, right? And that's the whole point of this proverb of if you can't open yourself up to the fact that there could possibly be anything about the situation or experience that you don't know, see, or understand, you are a fool. You're a fool. Now, let me tell you something that you may already know, but maybe have never been able to articulate before, or maybe you've never thought about this. But here's the reality of the way that people think and function. Everything everyone does makes perfect sense to them. Everything everyone does makes perfect sense to them. I'm going to go a step further. Everything everyone says makes perfect sense to them. Now, this is going to sound crazy, especially coming from a Christian pastor. Everything everyone believes makes perfect sense to them. And yet, what's one of the number one things we say when we don't see eye to eye with someone? Why in the world would someone ever do something like that? Why in the world would someone ever say anything or post anything like that? How could you possibly come to a place where you believe something like that? And if you're the one asking that question, who seems to be confused? Who seems to need an education? Who needs to lean in and listen? You. You. Ask, listen, and learn. And I know that your pushback, because it's the same as mine, is like, well, but what they need to understand is, well, what about what you need to understand? Because they're thinking the same thing. Because the truth is, the best way to get someone interested in understanding you is to first step forward and attempt to understand them. And Jesus is brilliant, and he knows this. And the reason that this is the first and most fundamental concept of having healthy relationships is a truth that James and Jesus and the ancient writers of Proverbs are trying to get at, that we often miss out on in our culture of being obsessed with rightness, or self-righteousness is another name for it. Is this particular truth that my happiness is less about me being right than it is about us being right. If you wonder why you were right in the conversation, but you lost the connection, and you should feel good because you're right, but you're in pain because you're alone, it's because you've missed the point. Because this is true about your life, whether you admit it or not, that my happiness is less about me being right than it is about us being right. What do I need to do to make us right? And the first answer to that question is always going to be, I need you to hear me. I need to be heard. I need to feel like you see what I'm going through, that you can see what I'm trying to tell you, that you understand my unique point of view because you are not me. I need to be heard. And if you're a Christian, the expectation is that you listen first. Because the crux of what Jesus built his authority to tell us what to do on is he says, love is all I'm asking you to do. Just love others as I love you. Just love other people in the same way that I love you. This is what it is to be a Christian, to follow the Jesus example. And I just want you to know, in case you've never thought of this before, Jesus did not come to be right. That was not his goal. If Jesus' end game was to be right, his life wouldn't have ended in a crucifixion. If God's goal was to be right, it would have been over in a few seconds. Like God would have come down and been like, this is everything about everything. Boom! And it would have been over. It takes 2 seconds for God to be right. That's not what he did, because that's not what he was trying to do. Jesus didn't come to be right. He came to be reconciled. He didn't come to prove that he was right. He came to make us right with him. And how did he do this? When God came to earth, he took on the form of a being that could not speak. The first recorded words that we have of Jesus, he says a couple sentences that we have record of in his teenage years, but he doesn't actually teach or tell people his perspective until he is 30 years old. What is he doing with that time? What does this tell us about the goals of an all-knowing, always right God? That God's goal wasn't to be right, it was to reconcile humanity and earth to himself. He comes to earth and he lives life trying to discover what it feels like to be human, to experience what it's like to be you. What is he doing? He's validating your experience. He's listening. He's sitting inside of your life to try and bridge the gap between himself and us. And even though he was God, he listened first. And I just can't help but think, like, if an all-knowing God isn't too good to stop and listen and validate other perspectives, why would you be? How could that possibly be? Because you are not God. Maybe that was the one nugget you needed today. Like, you're like, oh, okay, that explains a lot. And if you're not God, and there is a God, and if God is all-knowing and all-powerful, but the point of his existence isn't to make sure that, like, he smashes everybody into understanding that, if he's not too good to stoop to earth, to take on a lesser form, and to closed his mouth, to be slow to speak and quick to listen and slow to become angry at people who mocked and ridiculed him and his creation. Like, why would you be too good for that? And some of you think, like, I already do this, so I don't even need this sermon. I'm a great conversationalist, and everyone in my life feels like 100% heard. I know that for a fact. Don't ask them, but I'm pretty sure that that's true because I'm great at this. And here's the issue with this. Most of us think that we are way better at this than we really are. But communication and conversation are not the same thing. There's a difference, right? There's a difference between talking with someone and talking at someone, okay? There's a huge difference. And there are moments where you have had a conversation with somebody, right? You thought it was a conversation. It was really a lecture that you were giving them. And you walked away and you're like, I feel incredible. I got to say everything I wanted to say. I got to make all of my points. They nodded. They listened to me. And then what happened? Then you listen. Oh, no, I didn't listen. I left after that point. And I walked out with my head held high. I was victorious. Right? And it's like, well, no, you didn't have a conversation. You got your validation, and then you left the room. There are so many relationships that crumble because one person is like, I don't know why she says or he says that we don't talk, because we talk all the time. And what I have to help that person understand is like, no, we don't talk, you talk. Sometimes that's what we've not seen, is that like we're getting what we need, but we're not giving to them what they need, because they need exactly the same thing every human's heart is hungry for: validation. And so what does it look like to do this well? How do we make that happen? I want to give you a couple quick tips. I'm going to put them all up at the same time so you can write them down all at once. Here's some tips to do this. And these are tips for you, by the way, because I know you're thinking, like, I can't wait to get home and just, you guys ready to listen to me for once? I can't wait to do all this stuff, right? No, these are for you to take home so that you can be the active listener. And the first thing I would suggest to you is to be attentive. Be attentive. What does that mean? It means put your phone away. Put your phone away. It means look the other person in the eye. It means shut the TV off, right? Texting is not talking. And texting actually can get in the way of talking because it can easily be misunderstood and misinterpreted. And guess what? I don't have time. I want to validate where you're coming from. You sent me a text that was actually a mini novel. I'm like scrolling in a meeting under the table. Like, I can't, right? We've all been in that situation before. Oh, no, we talked. No, you half listened while you're watching the game. She talked. Like to actually be attentive means there's nothing else going on but this conversation right now. I paid a babysitter to be in the room so I can look you in the eye. I'm gonna let you put my phone away so that I can't get to it. This is about me and you. And guess what? There's one thing that, like, I hate to go first here, but I want to be the first one to listen. Sorry if that offends you. They're going to start crying immediately. That's all I've ever wanted you to say, right? Focus on what they're saying, not what you're about to say, right? And we do that a lot. I do that all the time, right? It's like, oh, what a horrible point. Here's my counter argument, right? As opposed to just really listening and being like, okay, what does that mean? And and really trying to understand. The second tip is this: give cues to show you hear them. And that means opening up your body posture, right? Like sometimes we're like, they know I'm listening, and it's like, how would they know, right? They don't know what's going on the inside of your head. They see what they're looking at, which sometimes when they're looking at us is just crossed body, angry eyes, refusal to make eye contact, right? Think about one of the best conversations you ever had. It was probably when you were talking and someone was actively listening to you. They were entirely focused on you, and they were probably giving you a lot of cues. They were leaned forward. Their body posture was open, and they were like, yeah? What? And then what happened? Okay, no, she didn't. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go there right. Okay, sorry, I'm going to let you finish. That's so frustrating. Oh, man, yes. Wow, okay, that's a great point. Okay, and then why did you, okay, that's helpful. Now I understand, right? It's them giving you some sort of feedback. The third thing is to ask clarifying questions. And I'm going to give you a few that I think are helpful. What did you mean by that? You ever think you knew what someone meant, until you brought it up in the next fight? Is that just me in my marriage? Where you have that interaction, like, but you said, and they're like, well, that's not what I meant, but that's what you said. And I thought that you, right, we took what they said, we assigned our meaning to it. And sometimes if I think I understand, like I'm like, well, I know what I thought I heard, but what did you mean by? Another great question to ask is like, can you tell me more about, sometimes people will breeze over something. Even when I talk to my daughter, she's like, and then there's Jane and I hate her, and I'm like, of course, and then whatever, and I'm like, okay, slow down. Wait, tell me more about that. Who's Jane? Why do you hate her? What happened? And she's like, okay, right? And then she's like, I can't wait to jump on that bait instantly. Another great question is like, how did that make you feel? How did that make you feel? A lot of times we want to stick to the facts because feelings we understand are very subjective. Well, guess what? A lot of what you think are your facts are subjective too. Like you've created them in the confines of your own mind. So you might as well just put your feeling words to it. Like, here's the way it makes me feel. How did that make you feel? Like, I know you were like, I didn't like when you did that, or that was mean. Okay. How did it make you feel when I did that? Just watch as everything comes to the surface. You're really looking to lean in and understand. Another great question I like is, what is it you really want? What is it you really want? You know, oftentimes we don't tell people what we want. We tell people what we think we can get. I want you to get up right now and do the dishes. What is it that you really want? I just want to feel like I'm not alone doing all the work myself, and I just want to feel like you're leaning in, like you care, like you're a part of this thing. And you're like, this is not about the dishes. Okay. So wait, I can solve all of that by just like helping with the dishes happily right now? That is a small price to pay for that giant thing you're wanting. You just gave me the bargain price. Like, this is amazing, right? And the fourth suggestion I would give you is validate, then reply. Validate, then reply. What is it? You know, some great ways to validate, I think, in conversation are just to, especially like with my kids, with my wife, I would, especially if you're a guy in here, whether you realize it or not, you have a big, booming voice, most of us. You are an imposing figure. You are an authority figure. You are a person of power in that dynamic, in that relationship. And when someone opens up and shares something with you that they know you don't want to hear, that is a scary thing to do. Whether you're talking about somebody who lives in your house or somebody in a relationship with you or somebody who works alongside or for you, a great place to start with validation is this. I just want to say, I know you saw me cringe a couple times. I'm really grateful that you feel safe enough in this relationship to tell me things that are real for you that you know I don't want to hear. That's important to me. And some of the things you said did hurt my feelings, but you know what? I would rather you say them than not, because I want to know what's real and true, and I want you to be honest with me. And I know that was hard. A part of validation is echoing back what you think you heard. This always backfires with me and my wife, as I always think I know what she's saying, and most of the time, according to her, I do not, okay? I'm like, cool, what I heard you saying was this, and she's like, no, that's not it. And I'm like, what? No, it's my turn to talk, right? Like And then I have to ask this other question. Okay, tell me where I got it wrong. That's a very vulnerable position, right? Because in a fight, in a disagreement, an argument, when we're talking, we don't want to admit we could ever be wrong, right? But humility says there could be some things that I don't know, see, or understand. So to adapt the humility that Jesus displayed on the cross to simply say, so wait, hey, bring me in on what I don't know. Tell me where I'm wrong. Give them a chance to correct you in their own words, and then and only then can you share, hey, can I tell you what I think and feel? Someone is so much more likely to lean in and understand you when you've already understood them. It's a powerful thing, and that's what I want to pray into your life today, that Jesus would give you the power to love other people like he loves you, because if you start here, and there's more steps to come. There's 3 more weeks and so many more tools I want to give to you. I hope you come back. But I want to pray that today, when you leave this place, that God would empower you to put these things into practice to change your world. Would you bow your heads with me this morning? Father, I am grateful for every person in this room. God, who showed up here, like even just being in the room is an act of humility, saying, I want to learn. Tell me what I don't know. Tell me what I don't see. Open my eyes to how to have better relationships, because if they could be better, it means they're not perfect right now. God, I pray that you would wake us up to what is real and true, which is that there is much of the world that we do not understand. There are much of the people we've been in relationship with, some of us for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, our whole lives even. We have not begun to scratch the surface of how they think and feel about aspects of their lives in the world. And God, I pray that we would lean in, and God, that we would listen. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to be angry. May it be true of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.